are talking about the Assent. This one is essentially a possession movie, and this one stars Robert Kazinsky and Peter Jason. So the story here is we have this single father whose wife has been killed through some tragic accident, and he has this young son, and he's essentially struggling. He barely makes ends meet. All the money that he earns goes directly on babysitting. He's suffering from schizophrenia. He's seeing visions of when his wife died in a kind of a horrible accident. Barely holding it together. His child is kind of always threatened with being taken away from him unless he can kind of maintain a somewhat, sane life, so to speak. But matters are made worse where there seems to be a demonic presence within their home, wanting this family for their very souls. And it's only a disgraced priest who has recently come out of prison for having a boy die in a previous exorcism that may be his only hope, along with a couple of cohorts. What will happen? You have to watch that movie to find out. So this is a relatively kind of low-budget possession movie directed by Pearry Reginald Teo. Now, I feel like I have to talk a little bit about Pearry Reginald Teo, because I actually do quite enjoy him as a director. I've actually got a couple of his previous movies, Ghost Hunters and The Curse of Sleeping Beauty, both of which I really, really enjoyed. And then when I reviewed both of these films, the thing that struck me is he has a very similar visual style to James Wan, I thought. He reminded me, a little bit of the Conjuring films. He definitely has more of a B-movie sensibility, maybe not as kind of subtle as kind of James Wan, but there's that certain kind of, he works great in an old dark house and makes for some foreboding atmosphere. And that's very true of this film. In actual fact, for a possession movie, this one is fairly kind of graphic in regards to kind of effects and kind of monster effects and things like this. I think the only other film that I would say maybe this is compared to, where it's so overt in its kind of special effects and kind of monsters and things like that, is maybe The Song of Solomon, but that was more of just gore. This one you have kind of more sort of overt kind of monster effects and things like that. So it doesn't have the kind of the subtleties, for example, of maybe The Exorcist, but if you want more of a visceral possession movie, then you may want to check it out. So let's talk about a little bit about what else works. I thought the acting was, for the most part, pretty good. Again, it has that B-movie sensibility. We're not talking particularly kind of realistic dialogue. And, for example, some of our characters seem, more like characters than real people, particularly the kind of the priest, I have to say. But I still enjoyed the performance. I think our central character, Joel, who is this kind of the struggling father, struggling with kind of schizophrenia, I feel makes for a really sympathetic hero. And that's partly down to the portrayal by the actor and obviously the way he's written and directed, because you really do feel the odds are truly against this guy. He's got so many things on his plate. I also like the fact that they didn't kind of bash you over the head with what's happened to his wife. You can kind of piece it together without it's being spelled out for you. But I thought we did a great performance of a man barely kind of holding it together and really kind of having to try to deal with mental issues, not a lot of money, having to kind of desperately always fight to kind of keep his son. Thought it was really good. And the little boy as well who plays his son, I think does a good job as well. Like I've said, the father character, and there's a couple of other kind of sort of smaller roles that are in the movie, they're a little bit more caricatures than real kind of characters, especially the father, who I still enjoy because he has this kind of like this very kind of commanding presence, and I did enjoy the way the kind of the dialogue is kind of said, but nonetheless, it's a little cheesy and B-movie at the time. I think the effects work, as I've mentioned, is good. It relies a little bit on jump scares that I feel maybe put some people off, but I kind of quite like it in this kind of film. I think it sort of suits it. But it's not just jump scares. We do get a good sense of foreboding. There's great, I mean, again, you know, I'll refer to these couple of movies. Great kind of work in regards to light and shadow, and the way Pearry Reginald Teo can kind of, you know, make a really kind of old dark house look particularly kind of scary and things like this. I think that there was there's some good use of light and shadow and that to really kind of plus the film and make it that much more kind of scary at kind of times. But also when we do see the more of kind of monster effects, for lack of a better word, you know, there's a good prosthetic makeup here and stuff like that. I don't want to spoil it too much for you, but I felt it kind of works quite well. One of the interesting things I thought this movie did is the movie doesn't actually take the exorcism itself is more in the background. We do see some of it, but that's obviously the child who is getting exorcised. But the movie really focuses on the father and how he is dealing with it. So I like this slightly different perspective. We're seeing him have to deal with seeing this kind of priest pour holy water on his son, and his son sort of screaming and stuff like that, and the effect that it's having on him. And there also may be demonic forces that are potentially attacking this man as well. So that was good. I also really like the idea, the way he's trying to deal with his schizophrenia. And, you know, you feel like, you know, he's got a fairly good grip on it, and he's developed this. I don't want to spoil it for you, but the way he's trying to kind of deal with schizophrenia and trying to keep his, not going into it, I thought was pretty good here. I think the movie's very well paced. Like I said, it doesn't take long before kind of it hits the fan, shall we say. And I actually quite like the priest's kind of backstory as well. Again, it does a good job here of giving you enough without having to over-explain things. So I've mentioned a couple of negatives in there as well. I think if I had to have one real main negative, it was the ending of this movie. The last kind of 10 minutes for me let the film down a little bit because it tries to have a little bit of a twist. To be honest with you, I felt like the twist that it had was fairly obvious considering the point of view of the whole film, really. But I don't think narratively it worked particularly well either. Again, I don't want to really spoil it for anyone, but to me the ending was a little weak, unfortunately. And as I've said, there are a couple of it, the priest dialogue, as I've mentioned. It definitely does have a B-movie aesthetic. It is an enjoyable film, and I think it goes well with Pearry Reginald Teo's other work, and has that certain flavour. It's maybe a little bit less James kind of Wan feel to maybe those two films I've shown you. But nonetheless, it still is a consistent kind of level of work from him. And, you know, I would certainly be... I've got these kind of like little stable of kind of B-movie actors, directors and producers that I quite enjoy now. And even though I know their films are kind of low budget, I still kind of look forward to them. Like he's one of them, along with kind of Rennie Perez and stuff. So I think for me this was an enjoyable film. I like the aesthetic. I like the kind of the setting, the location shooting, the set design, all stuff like that. The creature effects, the acting. It was just the ending was a little weak, and a few things here that I feel maybe made it feel less like a kind of a mainstream kind of horror film and more go into kind of the B-movie territory. I feel maybe some audiences will see this and kind of think it feels more like a kind of a B-movie. But yeah, I actually kind of quite like this film, and I would probably watch it again, in fact. So I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.